Hi, my name is Kate Johans, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Director at ATPE. We've partnered with the Texas Association for the Gifted and Talented, Texas PTA, and the Science Teachers Association of Texas to bring you this parent-teacher conversation, the next installment in our series of webcasts in which parents and educators are discussing some of the issues facing our Texas education community and the challenges that we're facing during this COVID-19 pandemic and the return to school during the fall 2020 semester. I have a great panel with me today. We have one more panelist who may be arriving, but we just got word that he is handling a COVID emergency on his campus. So we're not sure if he's gonna be able to join us for this panel, but we will catch up with him later. But I would like to ask our panelists to just introduce themselves. We'll start with Jennifer Storm. She is here today on behalf of TAGT, but many of you may know her as the Executive Director of Friends of Texas Public Schools. And she is the mom of two. So Jennifer, tell us where you are in the COVID-19 fall 2020 experience.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for having me tonight. And I look forward to visiting with everybody else. We are 7 days in to virtual learning with 7 days left to in-person learning. So we're right at our midway point. I have two elementary age boys, and they are virtual schooling right now. So that's where we are.
Great. Our next parent panelist is Jeannie DeKine, who is the Vice President of Leadership for Texas PTA. Jeannie, tell us a little bit about your three girls and where they're at.
Sure, Kate, thanks for having me. My three girls are in their 5th week of completely virtual learning. They are 1.5 weeks away from returning to hybrid, in-person, and virtual learning. And we are part of the Arlington Independent School District. So we are positioned in an urban district, which has really kind of flavored the choices that our district has made, but it's been very interesting as we've worked through it, and I think we've learned a lot over the course of 5 weeks. So I'm glad to get to share a little bit of our lessons learned tonight.
Excellent, thank you, Jeannie. And our educator panelist this evening is Miguel Renteria. Miguel, you are a 1st grade teacher out in the Panhandle. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how many days you're into this.
First of all, thank you for having me. I'm honored. I'm 11 days in. I'm teaching virtually, completely virtual. Didn't have a great start, but after today, it's going to get better. I'm excited. I have lots of parent involvement, so that makes it better, but we're all in.
Excellent. And I would be remiss, and this is bad for the ATPE Marketing Director, if I did not mention that Miguel was an ATPE member and also a graduate of our Leadership ATPE program. So the first question I want to just pose to all three of you is, how does this feel different than last spring? I mean, I hear people call it virtual 2.0. I think both parents, students, and educators all actually had some time to prepare for this, whereas last spring it was like you left for spring break and then who could have imagined we weren't coming back? It was truly triage learning. How does this feel different? Jennifer, would you like to start?
Sure. I mean, I think we were more prepared. I mean, we were able to sort of prepare workspaces for the kids. We increased our internet speeds. You know, we knew that we would be moving toward the full online learning. We made sure that we had the right tablets and computers for everybody. And I think from the school, the information we've gotten from the school, it's much more structured than it was in the spring. In the spring, you know, to your point, it was sort of triage learning, and now it's sort of the blocks, like as if they were in school, and that's much more structured for us to sort of follow along with. So it's different than any start of school we could ever imagine, and it's different than even spring. So every day is a new experience and things that we're having to learn, but it definitely feels different this fall than it did in the spring.
Jeannie, has that been your experience as well?
Yes, I think to Jennifer's point, the curriculum is being built and delivered in a way that is much more intentional. And as parents, we've been involved in several communications or discussions about how really everything about this year and even how our children are learning virtually right now lends itself to being able to transition very easily back into in-person learning and back into virtual learning again if the transition is needed. So I think that the platforms, we collectively, students, parents, you can tell from the teachers, we all feel a lot more comfortable and well-versed in how to navigate through things like Seesaw and through other communication platforms like Class Dojo. We're really getting very proficient, of course, at Zoom, all of us. And it's great to see teachers and administrators using things that we've used for a while for other organizations like Facebook Live. So there's definitely a bent towards communication and intentional curriculum in mind.
Excellent. Miguel, flipping it other side of the Zoom screen, I guess we'd say.
I personally love listening to the other two ladies speak, and I wanted to jump off of what they were saying as well. We are very much more intentional. There's a reason behind what we're doing. In the spring, there wasn't a reason. There was. I think it was just throwing stuff out there, hoping that something would stick, and nobody was on the same page. And now that AISD, we decided to go with Canvas, and everyone's on the same page. And with technology coming into the classroom more and more, teachers are putting their lessons into Canvas, so they're able to use Canvas in the classroom in case we do have a shift and go all virtual. So I like it. I think it's better. We have a reason for what we're doing, and it really does mimic the classroom a lot more than in the springtime.
And how would you say that the students are they reacting differently, Miguel?
I was worried about the students coming into the school. I really was, because everyone has to wear a mask. At one point they were saying, at a certain age they don't have to, but they changed it to where everyone had to wear a mask. And we actually haven't had any problems with that. The protocols are here for their safety, so they're following, and we aren't having. I really expected to have a lot more pushback from the parents, from the community, but it hasn't happened. And I think everybody just is trying to get on the same page, and what we're doing is for their protection. But as far as the teaching, man, I hope that every teacher in the country can say I work with the best teachers, and I know that I do. That's just bottom line. I work with some of the best teachers ever, and so I know that they're everything that they do is for somebody else. I actually have a reading recovery teacher teaching in our school, but she's teaching virtually at another school across town. So we're doing what we have to do to accommodate our students, and I think we're doing it for the right reason, and it's pretty even out. And so I miss my classroom kids, but I think virtually I think we're being successful.
And how about your children? Are they, Jennifer and Jeannie, with both of your kids, and Jeannie, yours being a little further into this, how are they reacting to virtual instruction versus what the spring experience was like?
I think that even during the spring, my children, who are all elementary school aged, I've got a 6th grader and 2 second graders. The spring was a time for them where they realized that they were only doing this for a finite time, or that was kind of how they perceived it. To some extent in the beginning, they thought it was an extended spring break and that everything would return to normal, fairly soon. And so I think in some ways that prevented them from, getting all in terms of accepting that this was a new way of learning for a prolonged period of time. That shift has definitely happened for all 3 of them. They know that just from our conversations that this might be happening, for the next 2 weeks, or it could be happening for the next 6 weeks, or we could find ourselves back here learning from our home offices and our dining room tables again. So from their perspective, it's been really great to see truly how resilient kids can be, genuinely, that once they buy into this is a new way of learning, they've just really kind of gone with the flow. I think that one thing that I've observed probably just in the last couple of weeks is that a number of activities that are also, quote unquote normal, sports, other opportunities to, collaborate or commune, through church, those have started to come back online to some extent in person. So having conversations with 11 and 7-year-olds about why we can do some things in a face-to-face, albeit socially distanced way, and we can't yet return to school in that same way. That's been something new for them to process. So that's kind of what we're working through right now.
We're definitely asking kids to behave very much like adults, and in ways that maybe even are healthy for adults, like this much screen time, not so good. I guess, Jennifer, you're just a week in. How's it going so far? I hear that the first week is really hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard. It's really more of a challenge with my 6-year-old, my first grader, than it is with my 5th grader. He is sort of left more to fend for himself, almost to maybe too much so, where if he has trouble, he's afraid to even ask me for help because I'm so entrenched with his little brother. So it's a time management challenge for me as an adult. It's, there are those amazing pockets of parts of the day where I moved my first grader's desk. I moved a little table right next to my desk so I can kind of try to multitask. And I'll look over and he's sitting just as patiently as he can with his hand raised. And, I go, what are you doing? He's like, I'm waiting my turn, and he's just following sort of the new normal. And then there's days where he, hates school and doesn't understand why we have to do it like this. And that he will say things like, I'm so stressed out. Well, he's never said I'm so stressed. I mean, he's 6 years old. And, and so I'm trying to, and I'm not a psychologist. So I'm like, how do you feel though? What does that make you feel like? What's the challenge? How do we address that? And our teachers are so amazing. I mean, all of them. That's just a blanket statement. And I know it's true, Miguel, that you work with the best teachers, and we all have the best teachers. And that's one of those things we can share freely. But these teachers are putting their heart and soul into these screens, and you can feel it. You can tell that they care. You can tell that they love. You can tell all of those positive things, even though, it doesn't translate all the time, but they're happy and upbeat and smiling and excited and all those things they would be if they were in the classroom. And so that's the blessing in all of this, is that the teachers are still amazing. And they're still doing just wonderful jobs. And when I reach out for help and say, I don't know what to do when he says he can't draw a number 8, but he very well can, but he's just at that point, and she sets up a time to call me and we work through the whole process, and she gives us tools, and today was better than yesterday. And I think that's all we can hope for, and we just keep moving forward and have a lot of grace. We have to give these kids a lot of grace, and the teachers too, of course, but it's a lot, even for adults.
It really is. Well, Z, you're here. Thank you. We heard you had an emergency on campus, and we thank you so much for making time for us, even when you're dealing with the hecticness of real reality. So I'm going to take a moment to introduce you. Charles Zemanek, is that the correct way to say it? Or would you like to say your name correctly?
It's pronounced Zemanek, but after years, I've just learned Zemanek. Anything with a Z, and I pretty much answer at this point. But I'm more than happy to be here. I apologize for being late.
Oh, no problem. We completely understand, and thank you for your time. So Charles Zamanek, or Z as he goes by. He is an assistant principal in East Texas. And so when you all started school about a week ago, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, so we started this is week 3 for us.
Okay, week 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, how are, kind of just get a pulse, how are things going right now?
I just came in and I heard this word, a lot of grace, and I think that about summarizes how it's going. The teachers have been phenomenal. Absolutely, hands down, some of the hardest working people I've ever seen, because now they're not just a classroom teacher, you're an online teacher, you're an IT person, you're a counselor for some of our parents who are going through withdrawals because they can't send their kids to us. The students, though, I will say, have done a fantastic job of wearing their mask, following social distancing requirements. I think they've turned it into just a norm about doing hand sanitizer. But it's been challenging for everybody, and it's interesting because it doesn't matter if you're a veteran teacher or if you're a brand new teacher, because pretty much this school year we are all brand new.
Yeah, for sure. And just to quickly mention, Z is with a board member of the Science Teachers Association of Texas. So it's how he comes to this panel. Well, I guess, Miguel, listening to what Jennifer said, I wondered how her experience as a parent, how that matches what you're seeing in your students' parents. Is that kind of the feel you're getting from them?
Yeah, and there are some language barriers here with us. So luckily, the parents that I'm dealing with speak Spanish, so I can deal with that. And I've been doing FaceTime with them, showing them my screen and trying to teach them how to navigate. And that's been the best thing. And you have to take the time to teach them. And because we're teaching the parents, some of them. Dee knows what I'm talking about. The neighborhood that we're coming from is very poor. We have very young parents. I realize I'm only teaching 6-year-olds, but their parents are very young, and some of them haven't graduated high school, and so we're teaching them as well. And it's exciting. I have a totally different attitude than I did the other day, and it's exciting for me because I've actually been able to see some growth. But parents are understanding what we're going through, and I get nice messages, and that makes a big difference. I hope I answered your question.
No, definitely. I think really, talking about grace and being understanding and the parents and teachers, working together, it just seems to me from my perspective that that's really what this is all about. And I guess one thing I would ask each of you from your vantage point, what do you wish your partner in this, so your partner being the educator if you're the parent, or the parent if you're the educator, what do you wish that they knew about your role during this time that you think could make this easier? What piece of knowledge is there? Who would like? Jeannie? Okay, went off mute first.
I'm happy to answer that. I think I mentioned just a few minutes ago how grateful that I am as a parent now into week 5 that we have these various mechanisms of communication. So I think, in any given day, I am on 3 or 4 different platforms, either helping my child or communicating with a teacher. And with that kind of comes the opposite side of that coin, which is something that we've been working through this fall, which is trying to understand which platforms and which communications are the most important at any given time. And I do have 3 children, so to some extent I'm getting 3 times the information, but that can get overwhelming sometimes. And just having the opportunity to reach out to my children's teachers, which I did just this morning, kind of a standard message to all of the teachers that we communicate with on a daily or weekly basis. And that was, which platform should I look to for the most important information? Because there are more instances than I can recount of myself getting on the cell phone. Both my husband and I work outside the home, and we try to figure out where we saw some important piece of information about one of our children. And we go through the list. Was it on email? Was it on Seesaw? Was it on Dojo? Did we see it on a Facebook post? You know, and we knew that it was important. We just don't remember where it came. And so just sorting through that, and again, kind of having the making it a priority in terms of time, and kind of having the courage to reach out and say, I know that normally we don't have to interact as much, but I'm really kind of struggling knowing how I can best help my student. And so you and I need to be partners on this. And so help me help my student. And I think that's what I would want my teachers to know, and have clearly communicated to them on, and they've been really wonderful and gracious in communicating back to us on that.
Okay. Jennifer, let's continue with the parent perspective.
Yeah, I think part of it is the, you know, to Jeannie's point, it's almost a lingo, you know, understanding. So my 5th grader, you know, I ask him, have you completed all your assignments? Oh yeah. Well, then we get an email from the teacher, and it's blanket to everybody, but hey, go in and make sure your kid actually did their assignments, even if they told you they did. I don't know how to do that. Just very, you know, so I go to the place I'm supposed to go, and I check courses, and I think, okay, well, it would show up here, and it doesn't. And so today I finally said, you need to show your dad, because I don't understand how to even check your work. And he's like, Mom, I'm telling you I did it. And I said, I understand that, but I need to be able to check. And that piece is very complicated, I feel like, in that if he's already done it, he's already turned it in. There was no real opportunity for me to kind of pre-check his work like I would at home if it was a worksheet. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trusting that he turned it in, and that he did do his best on it, and all of those things. And I do feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect with that. I also think that you know, I have one teacher who's given us a cell phone that we can text questions anytime. I have one that's like, you know, go online, and I'm not judging either one of those, but it does add a little bit of delay when you're kind of at a crossroads of what do we do, and you have to send an email and wait. I almost wish there was a person at school we have IT people, but, you know, maybe more specific questions that you could call or text at any time that wasn't also trying to teach. Because I always feel like, well, I don't want to bother them with this, mm-hmm. but I don't know what else to do. And so it's everyone's learning as we go. We are trying to do the best thing for everybody involved, but man, is it hard to figure out how to actually do that. You know, we're all learning a brand new software program. Maybe if you understand it better because you've spent the last couple weeks setting it up, it is easier for you, but we're just all figuring it out. So I just try to be as kind as I can in my questions, and I'm so sorry to bother you, and I'm sure it's very simple, but I cannot figure this out. So if you could please help me, you know, and that's it, you know. And just the grace piece of a lot of parents are working, and I'm blessed enough to be able to do my job from home, but I still have a full-time job. And so the juggling of that, and that's kind of back to what some of the hard things are, is that my 6-year-old is now saying, Mom, you're always looking at your phone. Like, well, I'm drawing my letters and you're not watching me. Well, I'm trying to send an email while I have 5 minutes while you're doing this. And he does not like that I'm trying to work. And so it's this kind of heartstring pull of, I really want to be engaged, and I want you to know how excited I am that you're learning these things, but I'm having to find every tiny pocket of time to actually complete my job. And I know there's parents that don't have the flexibility to work from home, so they are having to leave, and I cannot even imagine those challenges. But that part is a little bit hard, of how do you juggle all your responsibilities, you know, and multiple children each day, and you know, keep your job and be able to keep your job, you know, and have your kid not saying he hates you being on the cell. You know, you look at your phone more than you look at me. No, I'm not. I think he thinks I'm playing games, you know, because to them, cell phones are games, right? And I'm like, that's not what I'm doing. You know, I can check my email here, and that's been hard to sort of manage as a mom of like, how much do I just schedule myself to focus only on school and then set aside late hours or early morning to do computer work. And it's hard. It is hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially that kind of thing, your kiddo saying that to you, it's like, oh, I know, really. And cell phones are not always fun. You will understand that later.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, Z, flipping that question on its head, as the educator, what do you wish the parents on your campus knew about your role?
I think the most helpful thing to know is that we're not in charge of the LMS. So LMS is the term for Learning Management System. So the number of calls I field about, oh, you need to fix Canvas, you need to fix Seesaw, and I'm sorry, that is not, we pay for that service, but that is not a service I'm directly in control of. And sometimes, you know, you get it by the time that parent is called, they're frustrated, they don't want to hear that answer. And now I will say, you know, I'm in an administrative role. So by the time it comes to me, they're very frustrated. And you wish you had a good answer for them. The reality of it is, though, is that is our new normal. Canvas, for example, is what we're using for our 3rd through 12th graders in our district. Canvas, the number of clients they serve went up exponentially. And so I have to contact my digital team at the district office, who then has to contact their person at Canvas, who's also got 1,000 other things they're managing. And so I think it's a good rule of thumb that we're all very frustrated, and that it's okay to be frustrated, but knowing that your teacher is not responsible necessarily for some of those errors, and that they can't control that, and they're just as frustrated as you. I think probably, I jumped to that because that's the first one that comes to my mind, but the most important one really is that I think it's important parents and guardians know that teachers want their kids to learn at home. We want you to ask for help. We want you to feel supported. And I can't tell you the number of planning meetings I've been on where teachers are just trying to rack their brains about, okay, how do we engage these kids at home? How do we make this developmentally appropriate? And, you know, we love our parent partners, but we go through extensive training and pedagogical, techniques and strategies. And there's a lot of work that goes into being a teacher and doing it correctly. And so it becomes a struggle, because I think we get frustrated because it's like, oh, well, you would learn this at school. Why isn't the online? The online's just not working. Well, sometimes we're limited in what we can actually do. So I was visiting today with like a kindergarten teacher, and she was almost in tears about the fact that, how do I teach kids to read, Z, online? Parents are calling up here. They're frustrated. They don't understand the guided reading stuff. They don't understand the phonics that we have to do with NIHouse. And so, you know, that's the questions that we're grappling with. So when parents are, you know, I would say when you're frustrated about something, I guarantee you the teachers are also frustrated as we're trying to figure it out. I think every teacher is struggling right now in the state of Texas to develop what I would say is an appropriate work schedule.
Yes.
I will say, for example, I checked my email at my lunchtime. I ate, I was doing cafeteria duty, responding to emails. I had 32. I got them all taken care of. Some were parents, some were teachers. And at 3 o'clock, when I went to the car rider line, I had 52 more. And so when you email your teachers, they're getting just as many emails as I am, if not more, from parents and students, depending on what grade level they're working with. And so they're trying to manage that while also teaching face-to-face. So sometimes I think we can get frustrated because we're not getting a quick response, because right here and now I'm trying to help my child. Let me email your teacher. Well, they'll get to you, I promise, but it's one of those things where we do need grace, because it's easy. I mean, I'm a type A personality. I got to check off my boxes before I go to sleep. And my work days right now are about 4:30 in the morning to about midnight. And that is a standard work day for me right now. And I'm trying my best to support teachers as they support parents and our students face-to-face with all of the regulations that come from the state. And so there's a general frustration bubble. And I think what would be really important is that as partners, we communicate in an appropriate way that is, okay, I recognize your frustration, I understand it. However, this is what I can help you with. And I think being realistic about that will help so many, because that's something that I hate to hear is when our parents are frustrated, because the point of a public education is that every child, no matter your background, is being served. But the digital age has most certainly shown us glaring discrepancies and gaps between the haves and have-nots. And my district serves, we're a Title I district. We serve a large population of students that live below the poverty line. And so it is a constant struggle. Things that we take for granted, like internet and being on our phone to reply to an email, is rocket science to some people because they just never had to deal with that. And, I think that pretty much sums up. It's just communication is key, but also having that patience and understanding that parents are working odd schedules and we're working, and a lot of our teachers, they have kids of their own. So you're a full-time teacher face-to-face. You go home to help your kid, whether they be online or face-to-face. And then you've got all the online stuff you're trying to manage. So that appropriate work schedule for their own mental wellness, I think, is an important key to keep in mind as well.
Well, and I think, and I don't know if you can speak to this a little bit, but I think TEA's attendance requirements for asynchronous learning contribute to that challenge, because certainly what we're hearing a lot from ATPE members is that, once they get through the quote unquote school day, is the educators are spending a lot of the evening trying to track down the children and parents that they didn't hear from during the day in order to meet those TEA attendance requirements. And so I think that's something that we can, help to publicize more, because I think if parents and the general public understood that, I think that would go a long way toward kind of helping everyone understand the pressure that all parties are under during this time. That's a big difference.
Well, absolutely. And I cannot speak for TEA. Each local education agency had to submit an asynchronous or synchronous or hybrid learning plan to the TEA. Our district, for example, in Nacogdoches, we have 3 criteria. Did the student turn in an assignment? Did they make progress in the learning module? Or did we have a synchronous interaction with that child? And that's our attendance. Mm-hmm. It has been challenging, but as teachers often do, we're rising to that challenge, and we're finding unique ways to manage our own data so that we can go into the system and update it. So that is definitely, I would say, a challenge. And it's one that I think would help parents, and we've tried our best to make sure parents understand in NISD, here are the requirements for your child to be counted as present. But I think it varies by district to district, and it is a challenge. But like I said, my teachers, man, we're rocking and rolling, and we've the creativity of a teacher that has to find an efficient system is next to none. You'd think everybody works for NASA.
That's awesome. Well, Miguel, you were the last one for this question. What do you wish parents knew that would make all this a little bit easier to see each other's viewpoint?
Oh man, it's hard to answer that question because the dynamics for each individual relationship that you have with the parents, it's hard to balance. But I was listening to Jennifer, and she's so passionate about. I hope all the parents are, but I just love listening to her, and her frustration, and I kind of feel like, yeah, I see that in some of my parents. But when I tell them, listen, when you're trying to get a hold of me, I'm doing a Google Meet with another student, so you're not the only student in my classroom. So if you can just hold off. They don't understand that they think that we're just doing nothing at school. Everything that I'm doing is a video or it's asynchronous, but it's not. And so they have to understand that there is actually something going on in my classroom all day long. And so they're learning, and I give them a window. From this time to this time, you can text me, whatever. But I did give my cell phone number to every parent. I think it's crazy not to. They need to get a hold of me. They're stressed. I want to be stressed with them, and so I want to take that off of their plate so I can take care of it. I personally don't have children, so it's easier for me to deal with some of that stuff. So I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know what I could tell them to make it easier for them, but I want to stress for them. I don't need them to, because there's enough stress in the world for the, they have to feed their kids and make sure they're up and doing their things. But I'll stress for them as far as the schoolwork's doing. I don't mind stopping. I don't mind being here like doing this. I've met parents late like this. I don't mind doing that because if it's going to accommodate their schedule, then I will do that so that they can understand. So I think I know that there are teachers here that are doing the same thing, staying late to accommodate the parent schedule to help them know and learn. But every day is getting better. Z knows this. I mean, with Canvas, every day has gotten better, and the teachers are learning, and I learned something today. So we're learning with the families, and I'm learning how to submit more stuff. And so it's like, yay! I mean, it's a party basically every day for me because I'm learning more stuff, and I can put a better product out there.
And yeah, I think what you said a few minutes ago about how you want to take the stress on for the parents. I think that's an interesting point because I think where I read a really interesting article, I'm sure y'all may have seen it, went the rounds about everyone's surge capacity and how we kind of used it up in the spring because this was honestly kind of novel and new and a little bit exciting and historic. And now it's 6 months in and it's like, ugh, how long is this going to go on? How long is my life going to be disrupted? It's just hard right now. And so I guess one question I would have is, how are your kids doing? I mean, how are your students doing? How are your kiddos doing? I mean, this is weird to talk to people through a screen all the time.
Can I circle back to one thing real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Miguel and Z kind of touched on this, but they're being very humble. And I'm not an educator. My mom was a 40-year teacher, and she is here today to help me for the rest of the week because it got to that point. So I think one key thing to remember from the teacher's perspective to the parents is these teachers really love these kids, even the ones that they've not ever met face to face. They love them and they want the best for them, and they are pouring their heart and soul into this. And yes, the technology gets in the way. Yes, the hours are hard and the emails don't get answered on time. But the bottom line is that the teachers that we have in our Texas public schools, they are not here to become millionaires. They are here. I guess the saying is they're not here for the income, they're for the outcome, right? Isn't that the way it goes? And I see that with my own personal kids. I see that when I get to meet great teachers like Miguel and Z and many others across this great state. And I think that's the first thing to remember is, yes, to Z's point, they are frustrated with the technology too. They are also learning as they go, but the love and the passion and the heart for these kids is there every day, whether it's screen or in the classroom. And that's where the grace part of this has to keep coming back of like, yeah, there are points of frustration. Yeah, we wish things were different, but we're all trying to make the best out of this. And we do need to see it as a partnership and not an adversarial relationship,
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I just had to say that because I've only met Miguel and Z through this screen situation, and I would love my kids to be in either of their classes. I can already tell. So I know there's lots of teachers just like that across this state that are really blessings to families. And so I just don't want that point to go without me.
Thank you. I mean, that's extremely powerful. And having had the pleasure of having met both of them in person, I can assure you they are phenomenal. So yeah, but kind of circling back to the question of social and emotional, I mean, that is just as important in school as reading, writing, and arithmetic. So, I mean, how would you, I mean, is all the screen time and uncertainty taking a toll on the kids?
I think for my kids, it's been very interesting to see how all three of them react a little bit differently. I have two who just can't wait to see their friends face to face. And that's really kind of at the forefront of all their conversations. And then I have one who asked us very early on in virtual learning if this was something that she could do all the way through college. She's happy to stay, and kind of prioritize her own work. And I think that for her, virtual learning is really bringing to the forefront some silver linings and some things to sustain for some learners. But what we have noticed and what has certainly endured as we get further into the semester is my husband and I realized more and more that prior to COVID, prior to online learning, our children, based, largely in their experiences and maybe because of their age, really never talked about doing hard things. There weren't a lot of things in life that they qualified as hard or that they had to really focus on to get through. And I think that though that has been something that's new for us to talk to our kids about, it's been really good for us as a family and for them as small people who are growing into, more mature people. And so we talk a lot about hard things. We talk about, just by virtue of some of the work that I'm engaged in, historical references to hard things or things that their father and I have personally been a part of that were hard things. And we found a way to work together or to get through. And I think that just the concepts of perseverance and resilience for them have been really beneficial, because I think that they look around, and if their thing is that they're really missing their friends emotionally, they're able to look to their left and the right and see that, they have a sibling that they can also talk to. They've become really good at expressing the fact that they're having a hard day or that they're working through something hard with us now that they kind of have context and language to wrap around that. So I think that from an emotional perspective, we've even had conversations with their teachers that has been very intentionally included in a lot of the things that they're talking about as well. So I can walk into a Zoom, 9 times out of 10, and if I'm there at the beginning of the Zoom meeting, that the teacher is actually asking the students to express how they're feeling today. What's your day like today? What's something that's really great? What's something that's hard that you're working through? And let's share with the group. So I appreciate that there's now this language around getting through virtual learning and acknowledging that it's not necessarily something that was normal. And so it's good to see an entire classroom kind of respond to that during a virtual learning session.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be super powerful to see all the kids work through that. And I mean, I do think that we are, as hard as all this is, I mean, we are having a very formative experience as a country and as a world, as the entire world. And I think that we're going to learn lessons from this for years and years to come. I would be interested in some of your the rest of the other 3 of you, your observations on the emotional well-being of students right now. Miguel, how are your kiddos doing?
I'll jump in. At first, they were really standoffish, but I think we really started to build a relationship. And so they're very open. They want to tell me everything. And I think they just need someone to talk to. And I've actually made extra meetings so that we can just talk. No teaching, just talk, which is a lot of fun, and because they don't have anybody else to talk to, just their, their little family circle. And I think it's great. And we need that. And I love to talk. You know me, Kate. We just always sharing stuff. And I have to tell y'all, I go every Friday after my last Google Meet, and I deliver books and supplies, whatever they need, and I throw in a snack. One Friday I went, and they happened to have the door open, and they saw that I was there. And I didn't know they knew I was coming at that time, but the mom came out and she goes, "Here, I have food for you." And I'm like going, I don't even know these people, but she already had lunch for me. And I thought that was the best thing ever. And I thought, we talked about this before. Relationships are the bottom line for everything. And even when you're frustrated, and they're frustrated with me, and I mean, if you just build off that frustration and build a relationship, it's going to be great. But I think emotionally, I think they're good. Here in the school, the kids that I'm seeing, they're hungry for interaction. We brought in Sex Steps to help with the social emotional problems, but some of the teachers are like, that's out the window, because right now there isn't a need for it, because they just kind of just fell into the line and they're going with it. So there isn't a whole lot of issues going on. So I think I think it was Jennifer that said that our kids are resilient. They're killing it. They're bouncing back, and it's harder for us as adults because we've seen something different, and you know they're young, so they're going to be okay. It's us that's not going to be okay. You know that. So, there you go.
I think, I guess, you know, we're getting to the end of our time together, which makes me sad. But I guess one question I would have for each of you, we're not that far away from an election. We're not that far away from yet another Texas legislative session in which school funding will, again, as it is every year, every session, be a huge issue. And I certainly think there is, dare I say, use the most cliched word of 2020, there is probably going to be unprecedented focus on the performance of public schools during this time. If you could share a message with lawmakers for the next legislative session about what they should know about what educators and parents are feeling about our public schools right now, what would it be? And I will let Jennifer go first. She's already off of mute.
I'm ready for this one. Well, I mean, I think my first message would be beyond the legislators and to every single educator and every single parent to say the change starts with your vote. Registering to vote and voting in every election is key to making any kind of systemic changes. The legislative message would, for me personally, would be more, schools are way more integral in our community than we ever imagined. They are not, we've heard these stories for years of like, oh, you're the teacher and the counselor. Well, it's way more than even that. We're providing hotspots, now districts are providing hotspots to families, and computer devices and food and well checks and home visits. And there is no system that is built to fund what our schools are doing. The way that the education system is funded, and the way students count, and the hours and the minutes and all of those things, none of those things mattered in the middle of a pandemic. What mattered was the amazing educators and the amazing administrators that did whatever they needed to do to take care of those kids. And I don't know how you put that into a funding formula, but it needs to be an X factor in all of it. That's my 2 cents for what it's worth. But yeah, it's hard to quantify what services the schools are providing to their communities. And the traditional, community-based public schools are I mean, there's clothes closets and food banks and, everything you can possibly imagine that is, the school is the hub of that service being provided to their entire community, and not just the kids enrolled in their campus.
Absolutely. It is truly a neighborhood school. Z, let's have an educator perspective on this one.
Well, I would, I would encourage legislators and parents. I have a strong feeling that digital learning is not going away. We've opened up this Pandora's box, and ain't no shoving it back in. And so the traditional brick and mortar schoolhouse concept is going to be completely disrupted. And so I would just encourage our lawmakers and our parents to just be considerate of that as we move forward with as Ms. Storm pointed out, the funding formulas, because the 21st century skills, whether for better or not, have been forced upon us. And so I think what we found during the pandemic is that, yes, schools are much more so than just a place where a child gets an education. We're a community hub. We partner with all kinds of services, nutrition, social services. We clothe children. We make sure they have health care. And so when we shut down, I think it did, and even more fundamentally, we provide childcare for our students as well, so our parents can go and do their lives. And so I think when we shut down, I do think it opened up a lot of people's eyes to, oh, wow, there is so much more that this physical building does that is beyond the bell and beyond the building, that we do need to take into consideration, because the reality of it is we've been doing that for decades. but not until our fundamental service of educating students in the schoolhouse was shut down and we stopped all the additional services, that I think it became a glaring target for everybody to go, oh, wait, what about this? What about this? What about this? So just moving forward, since the digital learning space, I think, is a big part of what's going to be in our future, the internet connectivity issue for a lot of our families that live across the state is a public issue, I would say.
Absolutely. I mean, you see the pictures of kids sitting outside a Taco Bell trying to do their work, and it just is absolutely heartbreaking. Jeannie, parent perspective.
I echo all of the comments about the real evident deep divide and inequity in internet and infrastructure differences across neighborhoods, across school districts, across the state. It really is going to become something it needs to be addressed, certainly at a state level, via regional partnerships, if not at a national level. I think that is something that our state legislators can really focus on. I also think that there are several opportunities for local school districts to look at how they fund parent engagement opportunities, whether that's just making groups like PTAs easier to have at a school campus, or through Title I funds, parent engagement specialists, making sure that they're really well resourced, because I think that if nothing else, to everyone's point, we're finding that the connection, the conversation between families and teachers is really kind of driving the full student support system during COVID. I would also encourage families, parents, guardians, taxpayers, voters to look very closely at opportunities that local school districts are presenting currently and will in the future in terms of bonds for capital needs, tax ratification elections, so that they can do things like compensate our teachers and staff better. Because again, to everyone's point, we are asking so much of our schools right now with not enough resources. And I mean, we need to do better. We need to do better by something that is so absolutely important. And as we've all seen, you know, you can't ask a teacher to work 4:30 to midnight on the salaries that they're currently receiving. It shouldn't happen. So that's what I'd say.
Thanks, Jeannie. Miguel, we'll let you have the last word on this one.
It's hard to follow all these great people, but I will say the inequity is real, and that's an issue that needs to be addressed, not just at the state level, within every school district. It's sad what I'm seeing, and Z understands we're a Title I school, and we're suffering. Our district, you know, there's still small districts around going, what's Emerald going to do about, when are y'all going to get a plan? And I'm like, it's hard to come up with a plan when our clients we have clients that are homeless, and then we have clients that live in a $5 million home. I mean, the spectrum is large, and so it's hard to deal with that. So people just don't understand that. So the inequity is real, and it needs to be addressed. And that's my final word.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank all four of you for all your time, and most especially for all that you're doing for our children in Texas, because I know that whether it's the children in your own home or the children in your district or across the state, you all are contributing to making their futures brighter and making all of our futures brighter as Texans. And on behalf of ATPE, STAT, TAGT, and PTA, I want to thank everyone for watching this conversation. And we're all in this together. And it's conversations like this and relationships and community that's going to get us through this. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.